So I wrote a song on New Year's Eve about Emma Watson's self-partnered comment. There's been some recent news that she actually had a boyfriend when she said the comment in the interview. And my initial thought was that she lied, but I've since come to a different conclusion. So I'd like to discuss my findings. I present to you Emma Watson's self-partnered faux pas. I've been watching a lot of the show Sherlock on Netflix, and I think I've figured out how it all works. I'm going to Sherlock Holmes this for you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think really happened and why she said she was self-partnered. Here we go. They've been dating for a while, probably right after she broke up with her previous boyfriend, because unlike most of us, Emma has a backlog of guys who want to date her. So, after her last breakup, she opened up the official registry of guys who want to date Emma Watson, browsed the list, and picked out her next boyfriend. She most likely looked to her assistant for confirmation as she pointed to the name, to which her assistant replied, "Excellent choice, I'll set up a first date." They started going out on dates, most likely late summer, since by fall it was fairly serious already. How do I know that? Well, my dear Watson, I will tell you. Due to the simple fact that she made him delete all of his social media, which happened before the interview in early November. That meant they were pretty far along. After all, you wouldn't delete all of your social media accounts after just a first kiss. Or even after a few dates. That's a serious level of commitment, at least 3 months. And if you look at the London Bakery photo of the two of them kissing, that was taken only a short time before her interview, there is one fascinating detail. Take note, she's on the phone during the kiss. Now, you wouldn't be on the phone with someone while you were kissing them after a first date, or after any date, unless you were really comfortable with them. I would argue they knew one another for quite some time. Watson, are you writing all of this down? Good. Now, when the question of her dating came up during the interview, she immediately thought, well, I already made him delete all of his social media. So if I tell everyone, what will have been the point of him deleting his social media? Then he'll be annoyed, because he really liked his social media accounts. So it wasn't an easy choice he made to get rid of them. Which is why she later made a statement about how relationships aren't easy. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she made another statement about her dislike of social media. Are you getting all this? Good. Moving along. It's quite obvious they were back and forth arguing about the very subject. They were most likely going back and forth for at least a few weeks about him deleting his social media accounts. How do I know that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Any longer, and it would have been a deal breaker. They wouldn't still be together, but they are, which means it wasn't. But why didn't they just agree on it in one day? Well, it's not something that you would agree on overnight. It was a big step to take in their still relatively new relationship, especially given that he most likely had a lot of good memories to look back on posted to those accounts. So it wasn't an easy decision for him to make. But the fact that he did delete his social media indicates that he was all in. Which means he was way beyond the I'm not sure about this new relationship phase and fully ready to commit. Now you ask, why didn't she just say something during the interview? Well, given that him deleting his social media accounts and their argument over it nearly ended their still blossoming relationship, she wanted to avoid discussing him at all costs. Because if everyone knew, then him deleting his social media accounts would have been pointless. And she couldn't risk bringing the topic up again for fear that it might end the relationship. Why did she instead proclaim that she was self-partnered? Well, Watson, that part is easy. It's simple word association. Remember what I just said. If she said something during the interview, then after the interview, they would have had to talk about how he deleted everything, and she still told everyone. Now, the talk would have possibly turned into a fight, which was what she was trying to avoid. And we know this because if you recall, she said relationships aren't easy, which means they had already had a strongly worded argument, reinforcing the fact that they fought over him removing himself from social media. So when she was asked the question, immediately she had to think of something else to say. But the only thing she could think of was her book group. And how do I know that? Because a little while after the interview, she made the decision to leave her book group, which means it was on her mind. And given that she spent the last few years building up that book group, our shared shelf, it was one of the major things that she was thinking about and even wanted to discuss during the interview. However, as soon as she was asked about a partner or dating, since she was already in love, a chemical chain reaction happened inside her entire body the moment she thought of the man she is currently fond of. Oxytocin, also known as the love drug, started to flood her brain along with other chemicals as well as dopamine and serotonin. triggering a deluge of thoughts about him, creating even more of a release of chemicals, and her entire body starting to react. Which means he was all she could think about. Her heart rate increased with the chemical release as she recalled from memory the sound of his voice, the sweet sound of his voice, and their last passionate kiss, each chemical release increasing with each thought of him, causing her to become giddy with feelings of romance. As I just mentioned, in order to take her mind off of him, she thought about something else she loved, her book club. And she started to repeat the words, "our shared shelf," over and over, which is something you would do in meditation. And that's exactly what Emma did in that moment. She started to meditate. And how do I know that she meditates? Because she's certified to teach meditation. Watson, that part is important. Make sure you write that down. Now, she continued repeating that phrase to remain calm and composed during the interview as her brain filled with oxytocin and the other love hormones. But the influx of chemicals was already too much. And her mind, now clouded with love drugs, the word shelf turned into self. Because she's been reading a lot of self-help books. And how do I know that? Easy. Emma reads a lot of books. Which is obvious, and I don't need to explain that part. Alright, fine. I will explain that part. Because she started a book club. And you wouldn't start a book club unless you read a lot of books. Now, she was thinking about self-help books because she was thinking about a recent book she read, which was a self-help book. And she was reading the book because that's what someone who reads a lot of books would do if she really liked a guy. And we know she really liked him because she made him delete all of his social media accounts. And he obviously really likes her because he did delete the accounts. So she was trying to make sure the relationship would work by reading a self-help book, which she purchased right after the strongly worded arguments about him deleting his accounts. When she was caught off guard by the interview question, and you can tell she was caught off guard because she squinted ever so slightly after the question was asked. And squinting is an involuntary reaction that indicates you don't like something a person has said to you. The fact that she was caught off guard meant that she was hiding something. And what else would you be hiding when asked about dating but a secret partner? Which means her body was saying what her mouth wasn't. And that is, I don't want to talk about my partner in this interview. So her mind said, I need help. What do I say here? Since she was recently reading a self-help book, possibly even moments before the interview started, because she would have been waiting for the film crew to set up equipment for the interview, which would have given her enough time to read, at the very least, a few pages. She could have been speaking with the interviewer, but that's highly unlikely. There's a much higher probability that Emma and the interviewer were getting their hair and makeup done, which is what would generally take place right before going on camera for an interview. This would have given Emma enough time to sneak a few pages from the self-help book she was reading. And this would have placed the word self-help on her mind moments before the interview. Therefore, when the question was asked, given the flood of oxytocin along with dopamine and serotonin, her recent reading of self-help book, and using her book club name Our Shared Shelf to meditate on to counteract the effects of her synapses firing off at an increased rate as images of her new lover flashed into her brain, the words she was about to say suddenly popped into her mind like a light bulb turning on. Self-partnered. Like a light bulb turning on. Self-partnered. Since her mind already had a multitude of concurrent processes happening in her head, and that she needed to say anything to keep her boyfriend a secret for fear of another argument over social media accounts possibly ending the relationship, the thought overwhelmingly made sense. I'm just going to tell everyone I'm self-partnered, she thought. It's like being self-employed, but for relationships. That works. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, that works. I'll say that. No one will ask or suspect a thing. No one will know I have a boyfriend, and my boyfriend won't get annoyed at me for having him delete all of his social media accounts, but still breaking the news that I have a boyfriend during this interview. And that is why she said she was self-partnered. Not because she was self-partnered or single in any capacity. In fact, it was quite the opposite. The exact opposite. She was simply trying to avoid losing her new love. Well, if anyone were to say they were self-partnered, it wouldn't be Watson. Sherlock Holmes would be the one. Elementary, my dear Watson, elementary. Consider the case solved. If anyone needs me, I'll be at 221B Baker Street. And Emma, if you have anything you'd like to add, I'm all ears and open to debate. Because I know, while you may not be self-partnered, you are partnered. Well, you started a book club, so you are all nerd. And nerds do enjoy a good debate. And I will debate with you all you like, until the cows come home. And you know what? The cows just spent 3 hours in the bathroom getting ready. They put on a lot of makeup and some very nice dresses and some extremely expensive shoes. So they're going to be out all night. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to watch another episode of Sherlock. Elementary, my dear Emma Watson. Elementary. Oh, I should have bought a Sherlock Holmes hat and a pipe. Oh well. Until next time, I'm just gonna stop talking now.